bulk. Hey there, kids, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, hoping that you are having a great day. And in today's video, we are going to be sitting back, relaxing, and having a wonderful little conversation on my very squeaky chair about gimmicks. Gimmicks that pop up from time to time more and more often, it seems, recently in the various card games out there. You see, every trading card game under the sun these days seems to have a kind of need for some flashy, super rare, special kind of card to draw in the collectors, the speculators, the investors, the scalpers, the scammers, and everything in between. And to be honest, I don't think gimmicks are necessarily a bad thing. And I think I've said that before. But I do think, especially in the current ecosystem with the levels of hype we're seeing in the trading card world, I think they can be overused and irresponsible if not done correctly. Now, what is a gimmick? A gimmick is just a word I use. And maybe the rest of the TCG world disagrees with me, but I think a gimmick in a card game is any kind of rare or variation to existing cards designed just to create chase and hype beyond the normal rarity system. You see, in Magic the Gathering, common, uncommon, rare, and that's it, right? Wait, no, mythic rare, duh. Those four basic rarities, those aren't a gimmick. You know, that's just the rarity system of the game, determining how often, how likely it is that you'll pull those various cards. Gimmicks in Magic the Gathering are things like alternate arts, signed art cards, serialized cards, cards that are rarer than rare. They are special variations of existing cards. Foils, in some ways, can be considered a gimmick. You know, and there's a lot of different kinds of gimmicks for a lot of different card games. A lot of the Bandai Namco card games, for instance, use just alternate arts for a lot of their various card games. Yeah, I think that was a really weird sentence. I'm sorry for that. You know, One Piece in particular uses the manga cards that are literally just art taken directly from the manga, given a little spruced up job, and are extremely rare, have a nice big price tag. Weiss Schwarz has alt arts and alt art signed cards by the voice actors of the respective characters. Magic the Gathering has serialized cards. Yu-Gi-Oh! I really like how Yu-Gi-Oh! Does it. Or not Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically, I like how Rush Duel does it. Rush Duel has really nice, beautiful alternate art over Rush rare cards. And I like that. I think those look beautiful. Have I mentioned that I like Rush Duels in the last 30 seconds? Because I like Rush Duels. Pokemon has illustration and special illustration rares, and all sorts of other variants can be found across the different card games. You name a card game, and chances are there's a special variant of an existing card that's designed just to be a chase rare. Neopets has it. Weiss Schwarz has it. Force of Will has it. You name a card game and it's probably there. And like I said, I don't think gimmicks are necessarily a bad thing. In fact, as with the illustration rares and over rush rares, there are gimmicks that I personally like a great deal. But I do think they can be overused, especially in regards to Magic the Gathering. Magic really likes its gimmicks. In any given Magic set, part of the problem I have with a lot of Magic the Gathering sets these days, especially after 2019, I want to say Throne of Eldraine is when collector boosters started popping up. You see, nowadays in Magic the Gathering, there are a lot of variants to basic cards. There are the four rarities, common, uncommon, rare, and mythic rare. Sure, that's fine. But when you start hitting more and more recent Magic sets, you know, you'll get things like the basic rare card, the alternate art showcase variant for the rare card, the extended art of the rare card, the borderless rare card, the special Surge foil of the rare card, the Phyrexian inked rare card, the serialized rare card, the special whatever side showcase version of the rare card. Like, a given card in the set can have like 5+ variants, and it can be very difficult to keep track of even what entails a full set of Magic the Gathering. I remember looking at Throne of Eldraine when it came out with the extended art cards, and that was kind of it. The extended art cards, and of course the showcase cards for Throne of Eldraine. And it had a few alternate art cards in there too, with the Planeswalkers. And I remember thinking to myself, when that set came out, this is a lot to keep track of, and people who are chasing full sets of the game, who want to get a full Throne of Eldraine set, are going to have a lot to keep track of. And if this keeps up, it will get out of control. And it got out of control real quick. As I said, I don't think gimmicks are a bad thing. I don't think serialized cards on their own are a bad thing. I don't think special variant rarities like illustration rares or overrush rares are bad on their own. But I do think it's a lot to keep track of if you put a whole bunch of special gimmicks in one set, and then just kind of keep doing it, layering on the sheer volume of stuff out there. Not only does it make it hard to keep track of Wizards of the Coast, but it makes every successive variant of a given card diluted in a way, making it less desirable, less interesting. I mean, look at, what was it, Core Set 2021 had the, 8 variants of Teferi. And I'm not talking, 8 different kinds of variants. I'm talking, there was one specific variant of Teferi that had 8 different, slightly different versions of the art. That was on top of the borderless normal version and the alt-art versions, I think. If I'm remembering this correctly, feel free to correct me down in the comment section below. But Core Set 2021, I think, had a lot of different Teferi cards. It was nuts. It was a lot to keep track of. And look, and of course there was the foil variants, because this was the normal version and its foil, and then all the different, slightly different alt-arts and their foils. So there was a lot to keep track of. Keep me honest in the comment section if I'm misremembering this. But, if you're someone trying to get a full collection and you have all that Teferi to worry about, a master set's going to be obnoxious to get a hold of. Because the average Joe, store owner, trader, collector, they're not going to know off the top of their head if this is the full art or the extended art version of a card. They're not going to know if it's the showcase or something like that. They're just going to look at the card and go, oh, that's an alt art. Whatever, that's going to be hard to keep track of. It's going to be hard to keep track of. I think when you're designing a set for the general populace, you should have one gimmick to the set, whether it's alt arts appearing at a high rate, like what they did in, what's a good example? I suppose Battle for Zendikar, Oath of the Gatewatcher are a good example. They had the special Zendikar lands that only appeared every so often. 2 cases, I think it was. It was nuts. They were super rare. Nice cards. Very beautiful looking. I think that's a good example of how to do a gimmick right. Create a chase. It's good. Chase is good. More whales for the game is good. But don't do it in such an obnoxious way that even keeping track of what there is to chase becomes a hassle. Look at how Pokemon does its illustration rares. Every so often, there's a shitload of illustration rares in the set, and then some other sets don't have a shitload of illustration rares. For the most part, though, there's few enough that it's easy to keep track of what has a regular art, what has an illustration rare, and what has a special illustration rare. And yeah, the special illustration rare is just a rarer illustration rare, but even then, I don't think they're too obnoxious when it comes to Pokemon, just because there's not a load of them in the set. There's usually only a handful, right? Flesh and Blood has extended art cards in some of its sets. Like I said with Rush Duels, it's the normal card, the secret rare variant sometimes, and then the Overrush variant. Some sets do more, but some sets do less. It's based on the set in question. But for the most part, I think fewer variations in a set is better, and you should rely more and more often on tried and true traditional rarity. Because here's the thing, okay, here's the thing. As I said earlier in the video, the more variation there is to a card, the more you dilute the card. Sooner or later, this reaches a tipping point, and the average collector becomes completely disinterested and disconnected from the chase for a card that has 13 plus variants, none of them all that special, none of them all that rare in comparison to one another. Look at Pokemon. Okay, look at the average Pokemon card that has a illustration rare and special illustration rare variant. The regular card isn't all that playable. Well, I shouldn't say playable, collectible. There we go. Sorry, wrong word. The regular version of the Pokemon card isn't that collectible. It's readily available for anyone to put in their deck or throw in the binder, whatever. The illustration rare is a bit scarcer, a bit more desirable. The special illustration rare is much rarer, much more desirable. Pokemon has a nice system going, where there are high-end, desirable cards for the people who want to collect their beautiful alt-art trainer cards and their beautiful alt-art Pokemon cards, right? And there's still stuff available for the people who want to just play the game as is. That's pretty nice. I like that. You jump over to Magic, meanwhile, and we have a system where there's a bunch of variations for a given card, and for the most part, with the exception of one of the newer gimmicks, serialized cards, no one's really all that interested in the crazy number of variations that Magic has going on. And this is not at all how it could be. I previously mentioned the lands used in Zendikar, right? Battle for Zendikar, Jesus. Sorry. Battle for Zendikar with Bewitched. There's been a lot of Zendikar sets, okay? Forgive me. I'm an old man, my memory's not perfect, and there's been a few Zendikar sets, okay? The Masterpiece series that Wizards of the Coast used to do, where every X amount of cases you could pull a very special, very beautiful card. These were very beautiful. You could pull a very beautiful card every so many boxes, every so often in a case, I think. One a case or one every 2 cases. They'd be very beautiful, very highly desired, very rare, but they didn't impact the normal rarity. And there was only so many of them. The Battle for Zendikar block had it, Kaladesh had it, Amonkhet had it, though nobody liked the Amonkhet ones. When those were fresh, I don't know if you guys know this, if you weren't around back then, but nobody liked the Amonkhet invocations. They looked awful, they were impossible to read, and they weren't received that well. Nowadays, they have a bit of a collector's desire to them, but back in the day, they were not that well received, just because they were kind of hard to read. But I think, you know, what I'm trying to say here is, if you have just a few gimmicks in a set, or even just one gimmick to a set, look at, again, illustration rares versus special illustration rares, or the Overrush rares for Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, 1 or 2 gimmicks is not a bad idea. If you dilute the set, if you dilute your product with a slew of crazy variations, I feel like the results speak for themselves. Look at the average Magic the Gathering set. Average Magic the Gathering set right now. Don't look at the serialized cards, because those are just the super rarest ever. So obviously those are going to have a high demand. The average Magic set is bogged down by special variations that nobody is really all that interested in. Sure, the top-end cards are still going to be collectible and desirable as a result. But look at the average variations. I feel like, for the most part, Wizards of the Coast could do well to just kind of dial back a bit. Not on the sets being released every year. And they could afford to release fewer sets every year, promise. But just on the crazy number of variations in a set. Alt arts, full arts, extended arts, special kinds of foiling. There's a lot to it, and it doesn't add anything to the collectability of the game, except getting another check on the list to people looking to fill out their full binders. And at the end of the day, I think if you turn collecting into something that's tedious and a hassle to do, not a chase, not a thrilling hunt for that one last card you need for your binder to be complete. If you turn that hunt into something tedious, a checklist of virtually identical cards, sooner or later you're going to run out of people willing to engage in that checklist. I don't know. Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm crazy, or do you think that this is something I might be right about? I don't know. I'm your uncle, spouting his random nonsense at 2 in the morning because I have nothing better going on. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. I think that's everything. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.